The champagne flute lay in jagged pieces at my feet, mirroring the shattered remnants of my trust. Around me, the wedding celebrations continued, oblivious to the silent earthquake that had just ripped through my world. They raised their glasses, toasting to love and family, while I stood frozen, the echo of his words still ringing in my ears, a casual dismissal, a cold calculation that rewrote everything I thought I knew. They believed they had silenced me, stripped me of my voice and my future, but in that moment, a different kind of strength began to bloom, the quiet, patient strength of revenge. If your heart aches for Ashley's story and you believe that family should always have each other's backs, subscribe now. The day started with so much promise. It was supposed to be a celebration of new beginnings, my son, Mark, marrying the lovely Sarah. I had poured my heart and soul into planning every detail, from the delicate lace on Sarah's gown to the meticulously arranged wildflowers that adorned the tables at our family farm. The air was thick with the sweet scent of honeysuckle and the buzz of happy chatter. Mark beamed as he saw Sarah walking down the aisle, and I felt a surge of pride, watching my son embark on this new chapter. Everything felt perfect, idyllic even. Little did I know, the picture-perfect facade was about to crumble in the most devastating way imaginable. I had always welcomed Sarah's family, her parents and her sister Emily, into our lives. They seemed genuinely kind, appreciative of our warmth and hospitality. We treated them like our own, sharing holidays and family traditions, building a bond that I believed was solid and unbreakable. Ashley was known to be a very trusting woman. The reception was in full swing when I overheard a conversation that would forever alter the course of my life. I had stepped outside onto the veranda for a breath of fresh air, seeking a moment of quiet amidst the joyful chaos. Through the open window, I heard Sarah's father speaking to my husband, Tom. I paused, not wanting to eavesdrop, but his words snagged my attention like a fishhook. He was thanking Tom, effusively, for his generosity, for making it all possible. I frowned, confused. What exactly had Tom made possible? As I strained to hear more, Sarah's sister Emily joined them, her voice laced with a saccharine sweetness that sent a shiver down my spine. "It's all thanks to Tom, isn't it?" she purred. "He's been so incredibly supportive of everything." A knot of unease tightened in my stomach. Supported of what, exactly? My heart pounded in my chest. They spoke of moving, of a new life, of taking over, and that's when I heard it. The casual mention of their plans to move onto our farm, to help us run the place, to essentially take over everything my husband and I had built over the last 30 years. They spoke of renovating the old farmhouse, turning it into their own private residence, while relegating Tom and I to the smaller cottage on the property. Tom just chuckled. And then I heard Tom laugh and say, "Ashley will get used to it. She always does what she is told." The person I trusted most was one of them. The world swam. The champagne flute slipped from my numb fingers, shattering on the stone floor. It was a small sound, easily lost in the joyous din, but to me, it was deafening. Each shard of glass reflected a distorted image of the happy couple, of my husband, of the life I thought I knew, now broken beyond repair. I wanted to scream, to confront them, to expose their treachery in front of everyone, but something stopped me. A cold, calculating voice whispered in my ear, telling me to be patient, to observe, to plan. I forced a smile, plastered it on my face like a cheap mask, and rejoined the party. The music seemed louder now, the laughter sharper, the air thicker with a suffocating sense of betrayal. I watched Tom, Sarah, and Emily, their faces radiating innocence, their words dripping with false affection. I felt like an outsider in my own life, a ghost haunting a celebration that was now tainted with deceit. The days that followed were a blur of forced smiles and hollow conversations. I tried to talk to Tom, to broach the subject of Sarah's family and their plans for the farm, but he brushed me off, dismissing my concerns as paranoia. "They're just being helpful, Ashley," he'd say, his voice laced with impatience. "You're always so suspicious of everyone. Can't you just be grateful for their support?" Grateful? I wanted to scream. They were plotting to steal our home, our livelihood, our future, and he was calling it support. Sleepless nights became my constant companion. I would lie awake in bed, the image of the shattered champagne flute burned into my mind, replaying the conversation I had overheard, searching for a way out of this nightmare. My attempts to subtly push back against Sarah and Emily's increasing presence on the farm were met with passive-aggressive resistance. They would accidentally rearrange things in the house, forget to consult me on important decisions, and constantly undermine my authority in front of the farmhands. It was a slow, insidious takeover, designed to erode my confidence and isolate me from the life I had built. I tried to confide in Mark, hoping he would see through their charade, but he was blinded by his love for Sarah. He dismissed my concerns as motherly overprotectiveness, assuring me that Sarah and her family only had our best interests at heart. "Mom, you're being ridiculous," he'd say, his voice laced with exasperation. "Sarah loves this family. Why would she want to hurt us?" His words were like a knife twisting in my heart. I was alone, surrounded by people I loved, yet completely and utterly alone. The weight of their betrayal pressed down on me, suffocating me with despair. I felt like I was drowning in a sea of lies, with no one to throw me a lifeline. Every interaction with Tom became a minefield. His eyes seemed to hold a strange mixture of pity and contempt. The man I had loved for so many years was now a stranger, his heart hardened against me. He avoided my gaze, his touch felt cold and unfamiliar, and his words were often laced with a subtle cruelty that chipped away at my soul. He started spending more and more time with Sarah's family, discussing plans for the farm without even consulting me. I felt like I was being erased from his life, replaced by a new family, a new future that didn't include me. One evening, I found Tom and Sarah's father in the barn, poring over blueprints for the farmhouse renovation. They were laughing and joking, their faces flushed with excitement. As I watched them, a wave of nausea washed over me. The reality of their betrayal hit me with full force. They were stealing my life, brick by brick, and there was nothing I could do to stop them. Or so they thought. That night, I wandered out into the fields, the vast expanse of the farm suddenly feeling like a cage. The moon cast long, eerie shadows, turning familiar landmarks into grotesque shapes. The wind whispered through the corn stalks, carrying secrets I didn't want to hear. I walked aimlessly, my feet heavy, my heart aching with a pain so profound it felt physical. I reached the old oak tree at the edge of the property, a place where Mark used to play as a child. I sank to the ground, burying my face in my hands, and wept. The tears flowed freely, washing away years of repressed emotions, of unspoken fears, of unwavering devotion that had been so carelessly betrayed. I felt utterly broken, stripped bare, reduced to nothing. They had taken everything from me, my home, my husband, my son, my future, leaving me with nothing but a hollow shell of what I once was. As I sat there, consumed by despair, a chilling thought crept into my mind. Perhaps they were right. Perhaps I was just an old woman, clinging to a past that was no longer relevant. Perhaps I should just accept my fate, fade into the background, and let them take over. The thought was tempting, a siren song promising an end to the pain, an escape from the relentless torment. But then, a flicker of defiance ignited within me. A tiny spark of resilience that refused to be extinguished. I thought of my grandmother, a strong, independent woman who had weathered countless storms in her life. She had taught me the importance of standing up for myself, of fighting for what I believed in, of never giving up, no matter how dire the circumstances. Her words echoed in my mind, a lifeline in the darkness. "You are a survivor, Ashley," she had said. "You have the strength within you to overcome anything." I raised my head, my gaze fixed on the horizon. The first rays of dawn were beginning to paint the sky with streaks of pink and gold, a promise of a new day. A new beginning. I took a deep breath, filling my lungs with the crisp morning air, and made a decision. I would not surrender. I would not let them win. I would fight back, not with anger or violence, but with cunning and strategy. I would use their own deceit against them, turning their treachery into their downfall. The tears stopped flowing, replaced by a cold, steely resolve. The pain was still there, but it was no longer paralyzing. It was fuel, feeding my determination, sharpening my focus. I stood up, brushed the dirt from my clothes, and walked back towards the farmhouse, a new purpose burning in my heart. As I approached the house, I saw Tom and Sarah's father standing on the porch, talking and laughing. They turned to look at me, their faces etched with a mixture of surprise and annoyance. "Where have you been, Ashley?" Tom asked, his voice laced with irritation. "We were worried about you." "I just went for a walk," I replied, my voice calm and steady. "I needed some fresh air." I looked them straight in the eye, letting them see the change in me, the shift in power. They may have thought they had broken me, but they were wrong. They had only awakened a sleeping giant. From that moment on, I became a different person. I was no longer the trusting, naive woman they had taken advantage of. I was a strategist, a planner, a silent observer, meticulously gathering information, patiently waiting for the perfect opportunity to strike. I started paying closer attention to their conversations, their habits, their weaknesses. I noticed the subtle cracks in their facade, the hidden tensions beneath their smiles, the unspoken resentments simmering beneath the surface. I learned that Sarah was deeply insecure, constantly seeking validation from her father and sister. Emily was ambitious and manipulative, always vying for control, always looking for an advantage. And Tom was weak, easily swayed by flattery and promises of a better life. Their biggest weakness? They thought they were untouchable. They believed they were smarter than me, that they had outmaneuvered me, that I was too old and too foolish to see through their charade. But they were wrong. So very wrong. I smiled. I acted broken. But I was recording everything. I smiled, I played their game, acting the part of the defeated wife, the doting grandmother, all the while meticulously gathering evidence, documenting their every move. I installed a hidden camera in the barn, disguised as a smoke detector, capturing their clandestine meetings, their whispered conversations, their blatant disregard for my feelings and my property. I reactivated an old security system on the property, one they assumed was defunct, positioning cameras to overlook key areas like the farmhouse entrance, the driveway, and the fields surrounding the house. The footage became my secret weapon, a digital diary of their deceit. I even consulted with a private investigator, a former law enforcement officer I found through a friend. I needed to understand the legal ramifications of their actions, to know exactly where they were vulnerable. He advised me on how to properly document everything, ensuring the evidence would be admissible in court, should it come to that. He warned me about potential pitfalls, about the importance of maintaining my composure, of never letting them suspect what I was planning. The investigator was invaluable, helping me navigate the complex legal landscape, providing me with the knowledge and resources I needed to protect myself and my property. He discovered something crucial. Tom had secretly transferred a significant portion of our assets into a joint account with Sarah's father, without my knowledge or consent. This was financial impropriety, a clear violation of our marital agreement. It was the smoking gun I needed. There were close calls, moments when I thought they were onto me. Emily, with her sharp intuition, seemed to sense that something was amiss. She would often give me suspicious glances, her eyes narrowed, as if trying to penetrate my disguise. One afternoon, she cornered me in the kitchen, her voice dripping with false concern. "Ashley, are you all right?" she asked. "You seem a little distant lately." I forced a smile, meeting her gaze with unwavering composure. "I'm fine, Emily," I replied. "Just a little tired. All this wedding planning has taken its toll." She didn't seem convinced, but she didn't press the issue. I could see the wheels turning in her head, her mind racing to uncover my secrets. That night, I moved the hidden cameras, just to be safe, and erased the recent footage, not wanting to risk them discovering my surveillance. Another time, Tom confronted me about the security system. "What's with all the cameras, Ashley?" he asked, his voice laced with suspicion. "Are you trying to spy on us?" I feigned innocence, playing the part of the forgetful old woman. "Oh, those old things?" I said. "I just thought it would be nice to have a little extra security around the place. You know, with all the strangers coming and going." He seemed to buy it, but I knew I had to be more careful. They were becoming increasingly wary, their paranoia growing with each passing day. The anticipation was almost unbearable. I knew the perfect opportunity would present itself soon, and I had to be ready to seize it. I refined my plan, tweaking the details, anticipating every possible scenario. I consulted with my lawyer, ensuring that all my legal ducks were in a row. I gathered all the evidence, organizing it meticulously, preparing it for presentation. The local Founders' Day was coming up, an annual celebration that drew the entire community to our farm. It was a tradition that Tom and I had started many years ago, a way to give back to the people who had supported us throughout our lives. It was also the perfect stage for my grand reveal. Everyone would be there, our friends, our neighbors, our family. It was the one day they would not expect anything from me. I would unveil their betrayal in front of everyone, exposing their lies, shattering their carefully constructed facade. I planned to project the footage from the hidden cameras onto a large screen during the celebration, broadcasting their secret conversations for all to see. I would present the evidence of Tom's financial impropriety, revealing his deception to the entire community. I had even prepared a statement, a concise summary of their treachery, outlining the extent of their betrayal and the impact it had had on my life. The statement was my final act of defiance, my chance to reclaim my voice, to tell my story, to expose the truth. The day before the Founders' Day celebration, I received a call from my private investigator. He had uncovered some additional information about Sarah's family, details that would further solidify my case. He told me that Sarah's father had a history of financial irregularities, of shady business dealings, of exploiting vulnerable people for his own gain. He also discovered that Emily had a long record of manipulating people. This information would be invaluable, further discrediting them in the eyes of the community. I felt a surge of satisfaction, knowing that their carefully constructed lies were about to crumble. The day they tried to end me, I exposed the truth. The Founders' Day dawned bright and clear, a picture-perfect day that belied the storm brewing beneath the surface. The farm was buzzing with activity, volunteers setting up booths, children running around with excitement, the air filled with the aroma of barbecue and popcorn. I watched them all, a ghost in my own home, moving through the crowd with a forced smile, a knot of anxiety tightening in my stomach. Every interaction felt like a performance, every word carefully chosen, every gesture deliberately calculated. Tom and Sarah were in their element, basking in the attention, playing the role of the gracious hosts, completely oblivious to the fate that awaited them. Sarah floated around in a new dress, the perfect future bride, while Tom patted backs and shook hands, every bit the beloved local hero. They moved together seamlessly, a well-oiled machine, and the sight of their coordinated performance sent a fresh wave of anger through me. I took a moment alone near the old oak, the wind rustling through the leaves, a sound like whispered secrets. I closed my eyes and breathed deeply, centering myself, pushing down the fear and doubt that threatened to overwhelm me. I had come too far to back down now. It was time. As the afternoon wore on, the crowd swelled, the music grew louder, the energy reached a fever pitch. Tom took the stage, his voice booming through the speakers, welcoming everyone to the celebration. He spoke of tradition, of community, of the importance of family, his words ringing hollow in my ears. He gestured to Sarah, who stood beside him, radiant and smiling, the picture of innocence. It was almost too much to bear. I watched them carefully, waiting for the right moment to strike. It came during the pie-eating contest, a tradition that always drew a huge crowd. Tom and Sarah, faces smeared with blueberry filling, were laughing and joking, completely relaxed, their guard down. It was now or never. I signaled to my tech guy, a quiet, unassuming young man who had been instrumental in setting up the audiovisual equipment. He nodded, his eyes gleaming with anticipation. I walked towards the stage, my heart pounding in my chest, my hands clammy with sweat. As I approached, Tom saw me and smiled, his eyes crinkling at the corners. "Ashley, come join the fun," he called out, his voice warm and inviting. "There's plenty of pie for everyone." "I have something I need to say first, Tom," I replied, my voice steady and clear, cutting through the noise of the crowd. He looked at me, his smile faltering, a flicker of unease in his eyes. "What is it, Ashley?" he asked, his voice suddenly cautious. I stepped onto the stage, taking the microphone from him, my gaze sweeping across the crowd. "I have an announcement to make," I said, my voice echoing through the speakers. A hush fell over the crowd, all eyes fixed on me. I could feel the weight of their expectations, their curiosity, their anticipation. This was it. The moment of truth. "As many of you know," I began, "this farm has been my life, my passion, my legacy. My husband Tom and I built this place together, brick by brick, pouring our hearts and souls into every acre." I paused, taking a deep breath, steeling myself for what I was about to reveal. "But what you don't know is that Tom, along with Sarah and her family, have been secretly plotting to take it all away from me." A gasp rippled through the crowd, heads turning, whispers erupting. Tom stood beside me, his face pale, his eyes wide with disbelief. "Ashley, what are you talking about?" he stammered, his voice trembling. "You're crazy." I ignored him, continuing my statement, my voice growing stronger with each word. "For months, they have been deceiving me, manipulating me, trying to undermine my authority and isolate me from my family and friends," I said. "They have been secretly transferring our assets, making plans to renovate the farmhouse without my consent, and scheming to take control of the farm for their own selfish gain." I paused, allowing my words to sink in, letting the shock and disbelief wash over the crowd. "But I'm not going to let them get away with it," I continued. "I have evidence, proof of their betrayal, which I am now going to share with all of you." I signaled to my tech guy, who hit a button, and the large screen behind the stage flickered to life. The first image that appeared was a grainy video of Tom and Sarah's father in the barn, poring over blueprints, laughing and joking, their faces flushed with excitement. The crowd gasped again, their murmurs growing louder, their eyes glued to the screen. Then came the audio. "Once we get Ashley out of the picture," Sarah's father's voice echoed, "this place will be ours." The next clip showed Emily speaking on the phone, her voice dripping with malice. "She's getting suspicious, but she's too old to do anything. We'll have the place signed over before winter." One clip after another played, each one more damning than the last, revealing the extent of their deception, their greed, their callous disregard for my feelings. The crowd was silent now, stunned into disbelief, their faces etched with shock and outrage. Tom stood frozen beside me, his face ashen, his eyes filled with panic. Sarah was nowhere to be seen, she had vanished into the crowd. As the final video played, the one of Tom signing the documents to transfer our assets, I felt a sense of vindication wash over me. The truth was out. Their lies had been exposed. Their carefully constructed facade had crumbled. I stepped back to the microphone, my voice ringing with triumph. "This is just a glimpse of what I have uncovered," I said. "I have compiled all of the evidence and I am prepared to file charges." But before I could say another word, the lights went out. The screen went black. A wave of darkness descended upon the farm. A collective gasp rose from the crowd. And then, chaos erupted. The sudden darkness was jarring, a thick blanket that smothered the farm in an instant. A wave of panicked murmurs rippled through the crowd, followed by shouts of confusion. Then, a single spotlight pierced the darkness, illuminating me on the stage. My tech guy, prepared for this eventuality, had switched to a backup generator and a single focused beam. In my hand, I held a flash drive. "Don't worry, folks," I announced, my voice amplified and calm, "we're not quite done yet." I turned to address the beam, holding the drive aloft. "For those who think the show is over, think again. This little device contains all the evidence, meticulously organized and ready for the authorities. It also contains copies that will be sent to every news outlet in the state if anything happens to me." The crowd erupted in cheers, their support a tangible force that emboldened me. Tom lunged for me, a snarl contorting his face, but several burly farmers intervened, grabbing him and holding him back. His struggles were futile against their combined strength. I ignored him, turning my attention back to the crowd. "I will be filing charges. Financial irregularities, conspiracy, elder abuse, the list goes on. The authorities will be here shortly." As if on cue, the sound of sirens wailed in the distance, growing louder with each passing second. The police had arrived. The scene dissolved into chaos. Sarah's father, his face a mask of fury and desperation, tried to push his way through the crowd, presumably to confront me, but he too was intercepted by several men who clearly had no tolerance for his brand of villainy. Emily, ever the opportunist, attempted to slip away unnoticed, but a group of women, their faces grim, blocked her path, preventing her escape. Tom, still restrained, was screaming obscenities, his face crimson with rage. The police officers arrived, their presence immediately restoring a semblance of order. They quickly assessed the situation, dispersing the crowd, separating the involved parties, and securing the scene. Tom, Sarah, and her father were taken into custody, their protests and denials falling on deaf ears. Emily was questioned extensively, her carefully crafted lies unraveling under the scrutiny of experienced investigators. As they led Tom away, I saw the look in his eyes, a mixture of disbelief, betrayal, and utter defeat. He had lost everything, his reputation, his freedom, his future. Sarah's face was a ruin of what it had been earlier in the day, her tears streaking her makeup, a look of utter despair etched upon her features. Her father sputtered threats that no one heard over the din of the crowd and the authorities' questions. The following days were a whirlwind. The story exploded across the news, dominating headlines and social media feeds. The videos from the farm went viral, viewed millions of times, sparking outrage and condemnation. The community rallied around me, offering their support and assistance. My family, initially skeptical of my claims, now showered me with love and reassurance, horrified by what I had endured. The legal proceedings moved swiftly. The evidence was overwhelming, the charges were severe, and the defendants had little defense. Tom's financial impropriety was undeniable, his conspiracy with Sarah and her father was irrefutable, and his attempts to undermine my authority were blatant. He faced a long prison sentence, the prospect of spending his remaining years behind bars. Sarah and her father were also charged with multiple offenses, their reputations tarnished beyond repair, their lives irrevocably ruined. Emily, though not directly involved in the financial crimes, faced charges of conspiracy and obstruction of justice, her manipulative schemes exposed for all to see. The judge, in delivering the sentences, spoke of betrayal, of greed, of the importance of protecting vulnerable individuals from exploitation. He praised my courage, my resilience, and my determination to seek justice. They lost everything. I just smiled. In the aftermath, I focused on rebuilding my life, reclaiming my farm, and restoring my peace of mind. I severed all ties with Tom and his co-conspirators, determined to move forward without the shadow of their treachery hanging over me. I renovated the farmhouse, transforming it into a sanctuary of comfort and tranquility, a space that reflected my own personality and values. I surrounded myself with loved ones, rekindling old friendships and forging new connections. I spent my days tending to the farm, nurturing the land, and enjoying the simple pleasures of life. I found solace in nature, in the beauty of the changing seasons, in the rhythm of the earth. I learned to forgive myself for the mistakes I had made, for the trust one had misplaced, for the pain I had endured. I emerged from the ashes stronger, wiser, and more resilient than ever before. I saw the faces of my betrayers crumble, their lives disintegrate because of their greed, and I felt nothing. No joy, no elation, just an absence where emotion used to be. The satisfaction wasn't in their suffering, but in my survival. Revenge isn't sweet. It's necessary. It's not about inflicting pain, it's about reclaiming power, about restoring balance, about protecting yourself from those who seek to harm you. It's about standing up for what's right, even when it's difficult, even when it's scary, even when it means facing the darkness head-on. And sometimes, it's about smiling when they expect you to crumble. Would you have done the same? Let me know in the comments. Subscribe for more justice.